1963, I was a 17-year-old trainee hotel manager at the only five-star hotel in the Isle of Man, where I was born. I was a keen racing cyclist, and I'd gotten my hands on a copy of the Paris match and was tearing through the pages to get to the pictures of the Tour de France when I came across Henri Cartier-Bresson's photograph Rue Mouffetard, Paris, 1954, depicting a boy carrying 2 bottles of wine. And this picture stopped me in my tracks and held me spellbound. I was really puzzled as to why it didn't look like a snapshot, it wasn't an advert, it wasn't in the service of anything but itself. So what did that make it? Up until then, it had never occurred to me that photography could be used as a means of expression. And after seeing this image, I wondered about the possibilities for photography. And so, in June 1964, Chris Killip traded his trainee position for that of beach photographer, and it was by telling strangers to smile, please, that Killip secured the funds to move to London, where in October of the same year, he was hired as a third assistant to a leading London advertising photographer. Following this, Killip would work as a freelance assistant for various photographers until 1969, when pushed by seeing his very first exhibition of photography at the MoMA in New York, Killip decided to return to his roots, the Isle of Man. At night, he worked in his father's pub, dedicating his days to photographing the community, their diverse activities, and the landscape of this small island between England and Ireland. And it is through these earlier images that one can perceive one of the best qualities of Killip as a photographer, the ability to blend in. In the words of a friend and photographer, Sage Sawyer, quote, in order to photograph people, Chris embedded himself in communities. And it is clear when you look at his photographs that Chris was accepted and trusted. But here I speak of blending in, not in the capacity of disappearing per se, to then photograph candidly, but rather the inverse. Killip was someone who engaged with the people he photographed. He understood the importance of his participation, of showing interest, of becoming a participant witness. This capacity of blending in therefore highlights one of the greatest qualities a photographer can have, which, in my eyes, is really emotional intelligence. Killip's images, more than purely documenting someone in a given time and space, have, in my perspective, honored those it froze at a given moment in time. And this is an aspect of the photographer's work that was extremely important to him. In fact, according to my research, Killip often, quote, spoke of his images in terms of alternative histories, of recording those to whom history was done to or had been disregarded and dispossessed. Which is why I respectfully draw the comparison with one of my favorite ever photographers, Josef Koudelka, in the sense that Koudelka was also someone who cleverly inserted himself in the alienated communities that he photographed, not as a mere witness, but as a participant member, because there is an understanding and a respect and willingness of these two photographers to be genuine to those they photograph. However, while Koudelka focuses on the alienation of the communities he photographs, and if you're curious, you can check out the videos I've made on Koudelka, I believe that Killip goes beyond this aspect by framing these individuals against a background of cultural change or socio-economic shifts. For instance, in the Isle of Man, Killip illustrates the progressive move from traditional forms of agriculture and fishing to more modern ones, including the impact these and other cultural changes have had in the island's social landscape. Later in his career, the photographer goes on to focus on the ill-defined future of the English Northeast, once having been the quote-unquote paradise of industrialization. Being against this same backdrop of shipbuilding, coal mining, factory working, and simple living, that the photographer turns us, the viewers, into witnesses of a frozen time before everything is lost and after what was lost can no longer be found. Let's be honest, relationships are tough. I mean, one minute you're good and the next minute you're not good. It's not enough and you want something else. So it begins the endless swipe. And you admit to yourself that you've always had bad relationships anyways. Maybe you're too picky. You find things too stiff or too squeaky until one day you meet the one. And how do you know it's the one? Because it's fully adjustable, whether it is its height, its backrest, its head, and armrests. Perfect for anything that you have to do, brainstorming, planning, editing, and the occasional nap, I'm not gonna lie. Its mesh material keeps me cool, and the ergonomic lumbar support is definitely better for my posture. And its seat cushion, I find it dense enough for comfort but breathable enough for an all-day use. And after a whole month, I have to say that I'm not just in love, I'm committed. So if you're tired of experiencing heartache in the form of backache, then give Flexispot C7 chair a try. Or check out their other products below to make your routine and work better for your health. And perhaps you'll be just like me, asking yourself, where has this been all my life? In 1975, Killip moved to Newcastle upon Tyne on a 2-year fellowship. And once there, Killip photographed throughout the northeast of England, a body of work that culminated in one of his best regarded photo books, 1988's In Flagrante. This book reunites, quote, portraits of Tyneside's working class communities amongst the signifiers of the region's declining industrial landscape. And nowadays, these images are highly regarded amongst the most important visual records of 1980s Britain, especially as this was a time where photographers were increasingly turning their cameras into colorful portraits of a growing consumerism that affected the country. But it was within this same year and going into 1989 that Killip was commissioned by the Italian manufacturing giant Pirelli, with the goal of photographing the workforce at their tire factory located in Burton-on-Trent. And while at first Killip wasn't successful photographing such dark environments with such little available light, he went on location again in June 1989 to photograph with flash and a large format camera, a sort of unusual combination, one could think, but that proved to produce some incredibly beautiful results. In looking at these images, it is virtually impossible to ignore such stark contrasts. However, it is in the midst of these that one can find supreme beauty, a type of beauty that hides in each detail of an expression, in the aging of a subject's skin, a lost gaze, or a single body surrounded by heavy machinery. And although at first this might seem just a commission project, it is through this body of work that we can find the theme that links all of Killip's work, which, in my opinion, is human condition. The condition of one's life from birth through every stepping stone that comes with age and eventual death. from a child's play to every emotion, every aspiration, every reason, every conflict, every fiber of morality, every stage of degradation, all the joys and the misfortunes of living. This is what sets Killip's work apart, this idea of recording those whom history has not and will not glorify, those who became numbers, casualties of the unstoppable clock of change, those who became alternative histories of what once was and of what could have been, but that was stopped by what the photographer said to be the mechanical description of time. And that, of course, is photography.
My frying pan is full of grease. My bathtub is full of dirty sheets.